my boyfriend opened our relationship so he could leave me for someone else. It backfired spectacularly, and now he's losing his mind. Me and my boyfriend, both 37, have been dating for 3 years. 6 months ago, he dropped a bombshell. He wanted an open relationship. He wanted to date and sleep with other women. I was skeptical, but after some research, I agreed. We had one golden rule: don't ask, don't tell. I signed up for a dating app, and within days, I had over 500 likes. I started going on 1 or 2 dates a month, enjoying the freedom I never thought I'd want. I kept it all to myself, just like we agreed. Meanwhile, he thought I was just sitting at home waiting for him. Little did I know, he had a very dark reason for wanting this dynamic in the first place. The moment I left my phone on the counter, my boyfriend turned into a detective. What he found made him explode, but his own confession was even worse. My boyfriend didn't just glance at my notifications. He snatched my phone and started scrolling through my messages like a madman. He saw the hundreds of likes, the flirty texts, and the dates I'd been on. To say he was angry is an understatement. He was shaking with rage, calling me a cheater, even though he was the one who pushed for this dynamic. Then the truth finally came out. He didn't want an open relationship for us to grow. He admitted he had been obsessed with a 22-year-old colleague at his work for months. He opened the relationship specifically to test drive a life with her, so he could eventually leave me for her without feeling guilty. But there was a massive problem. She didn't want him. She thought their date was just a professional lunch. In 6 months, while I was being treated like a queen by others, he hadn't landed a single additional date. He was bitter, unsuccessful, and now he was trapped in a mess of his own making. He demanded we close the relationship right then and there to save his ego, but I had a different plan. My boyfriend wants to close our relationship now that he realized no one wants him. Aita for telling him it's too late? After he admitted he only opened the relationship to replace me, he demanded we go back to being exclusive instantly. I looked at him and felt nothing but embarrassment. I told him that maybe we shouldn't just close the relationship. Maybe we should just end us entirely, or at least take a long break. He flipped out. He called me names and said I was being heartless. But wait, he was the one who wanted this. He was the one who wanted to leave me for a coworker. Now that his plan had failed, he expects me to be his safety net. I walked out, and he hasn't stopped blowing up my phone since.
My husband and I are fortunate enough to live in a part of the world that is stunningly beautiful. I'm talking about the kind of place people save up for years just to visit. Naturally, we've become the go-to spot for family and friends, especially when it comes to honeymoons. My brother-in-law and his soon-to-be wife are getting married this August, and because they're currently pretty tight on funds, they reached out to us about a month ago. They asked if they could stay at our place to save money while enjoying their honeymoon in paradise. Of course, we said yes. They're family, we love them, and we were genuinely happy to help them out. Our home is a cozy 2-bedroom setup. One is our primary bedroom, and the other is my dedicated home office where I work from home full-time. Because I need the floor space for my desk and equipment, we don't have a traditional bed in there. Instead, we have a high-quality air mattress that we use whenever friends or family stay over. We thought the plan was solid and everyone was happy, until last week. My brother-in-law called my husband with a request that completely changed the vibe, and honestly, it left me absolutely stunned. Wait until you hear what they think is honeymoon appropriate. My brother-in-law finally dropped the bomb. He asked my husband if they could stay in our primary bedroom during their honeymoon. Their logic: they didn't think sleeping on an air mattress was honeymoon appropriate. They basically expected us to move out of our own bed and onto the air mattress in my office so they could have the master suite experience for free. When my husband brought this to me, I didn't even hesitate. I was blunt. I told him I was 100% uncomfortable with his brother and his new wife using our personal sanctuary for their honeymoon activities. At first, my husband was on my side and agreed it was a huge overstep, but the peace didn't last long. Apparently, us saying no was the spark that set the whole family tree on fire. Now, my husband's sister is blowing up our phones, calling us heartless and selfish. She keeps screaming that it's their honeymoon, and that we're being terrible hosts for making them sleep on an air mattress. The pressure is getting so intense that my husband is actually starting to waver. He's leaning toward just giving in to stop the fighting and keep the peace. But I'm not budging. There is a very specific, and honestly pretty gross, reason why I will never let this happen. The drama has reached a breaking point. My husband is now constantly leaning towards giving in just to stop the non-stop, angry calls from his sister. He's tired of the fighting, but I am absolutely not budging, and here is exactly why. It honestly grosses me out. Let's be real, the only reason they are demanding a real mattress instead of a perfectly fine, high-end air bed is so they can comfortably bang for a week straight on their honeymoon. I am not okay with my brother-in-law and his new wife using the bed I sleep in every single night as their personal honeymoon suite. To me, a bedroom is a private sanctuary, not a public hotel room you lend out for someone's intimate celebrations. If a comfortable air mattress isn't honeymoon appropriate, then they should have saved up for a hotel room like everyone else. But now, the entire family thinks I'm the villain who's ruining their special memories. Am I really the jerk for protecting my personal space and setting a basic boundary in my own home? What's your take? Should I cave for the sake of peace, or is their request totally out of line? My son is a big kid. He plays hockey and has been in taekwondo since kindergarten. He's more than capable of defending himself, but I've always taught him to use words first. However, when his school started letting bullies off the hook for a ridiculous reason, I realized I had to teach him a different kind of lesson right in front of the principal. We live in Canada, and lately, a group of kids at school has been making life miserable for my son and his friends. My son did exactly what he was supposed to do. He told the teacher. Her response: they're new to Canada, they don't know how to fit in yet. He went to the principal. Same excuse. My wife, who is Irish, and I mean real Irish, not Marky Mark Irish, was ready to go to war with the bully's parents. I knew that would only end with her in custody, so I told her I'd handle it. I set up a meeting with the teacher and the principal, and I brought my son along. I had one goal: stop the bullying. But the second we sat down, they started with the same excuses. They told me these kids were newcomers, and didn't understand how Canada was different from what they saw on American TV. I asked them, what is being done to stop this? Have you called their parents? The principal looked me in the eye and said, no. That was the moment I stopped talking to them and turned to my son. I looked him dead in the face and explained something very important about Canadian law. I said, son, you need to understand how things work here. In Canada, kids under 12 years old cannot be charged with a crime. They can't even be arrested. The absolute worst case scenario, if anything were to happen, is that you might have to do some community service. The principal and the teacher went absolutely ballistic. They started shouting that I couldn't tell him that. I just looked at them and asked one simple question: am I lying? They both shut up instantly. I pointed at them and told my son, notice how they didn't say I was wrong. Remember that. Then I told him to let me know in a week if the bullying was still happening. Suddenly, the school's attitude changed. Within days, all the bullies' parents were called in. The bullies were stripped of their recess and given library detention for an entire month. The bullying stopped immediately. I'm satisfied, but the teacher and the principal haven't looked at me the same way since. My wife thinks I should have given him that information in private, but I think the school needed to hear it too. So, I have to ask, am I the a-hole for explaining the law to my son in front of the people who refuse to protect him? Let me know in the comments.
I work as an engineer and occasionally do consulting on the side, usually just for friends as a favor. When a good buddy asked me to help his in-laws with some massive renovations on an old house, I agreed strictly because he asked. It was an old place, and I knew from the start it was going to be a total can of worms. My friend warned me the mother-in-law could be unpleasant, but that was an understatement. She seemed to think that because I was getting paid, even though I was charging about a tenth of what a professional firm would, she could snap her fingers at me like a servant. I put up with a few rude emails, but things really changed when I tried to schedule an inspection to verify some information. I offered to stop by on weekends or during the evenings. She rejected every single time. She demanded that I stop by during my regular office work hours because that was most convenient for her. When I told her no, she went from rude to incredibly hostile. She told me that since she was paying me, I worked on her availability, not the other way around. I didn't even argue. I just CC'd my friend on the email chain, told them I was out, and said to have fun working with whoever they hired next. She was stunned that I just walked away, telling me that wasn't how business is conducted. I didn't even bother responding. About 3 weeks later, I got an email from the husband. He was practically begging me to reconsider and promised that his wife wouldn't speak to me or be involved in the project at all. I heard from my friend that while other quotes they received were much higher, the real issue was the wait time. It's an incredibly busy season for the industry, and most firms aren't exactly rushing to take on a messy, convoluted project like theirs. They are now on the verge of losing all their scheduled tradesmen because the design work is still months out. I passed on the request. I honestly didn't believe she'd keep her mouth shut, and I had zero desire to bail her out of a mess she created. My friend didn't mind at all. He said it was actually refreshing to see her attitude finally result in some real consequences. So, was I too harsh, or did she get exactly what she deserved?
I was interviewing a guy for a top-tier software engineering position. On paper, he was perfect. Resume, experience, technical skills, he had everything. Honestly, he walked into that room with a 99% chance of getting the job. It was a life-changing opportunity, and all he had to do was not blow it. We started with introductions, and he opened by saying, "Let me tell you a little bit about myself." We said, "Sure, go for it." Then he started talking, and talking, and talking. 3 minutes in, I tried to jump in with a follow-up question. He just looked at me and said, "I will answer, just give me a moment," and kept right on going. My coworker tried to ask something a minute later, and he did the exact same thing to her. At this point, we were just glancing at each other, trying to be patient. But after 5 minutes of a non-stop monologue, I had to physically talk over him to interrupt. He finally paused, gave a long-winded answer, and then immediately veered off into a completely different topic. Every time we tried to steer the conversation back, he just spoke over us. I was done. I tried to wrap it up politely and asked if he had any questions for us. He asked about the team, but as I was answering, he actually raised his finger and interrupted me to talk about his background again. Then he asked my coworker a question, and before she could even finish her sentence, he talked over her too. I finally snapped. I raised my voice just enough to get his attention and said, "John, you really have to shut up and listen." The room went dead silent. He looked stunned. My coworker looked shocked. I didn't care. I looked him in the eye and said, "John, you walked into this room with a 99% chance of getting this job. Now, that chance is 0. The only reason is because, in less than 15 minutes, you've demonstrated that you don't have the capacity to listen to anyone but yourself. You aren't getting the job. But if you take anything away from this, let it be this. No matter how good your code is, if you can't listen, you will never excel in this career." He actually asked if we could start the interview over. I just told him, "You had your chance. Best of luck with your next interview. Just make sure you actually listen next time." I felt a little bad afterward, but some people really need a reality check before they ruin their own careers. Was I too harsh for snapping at him, or did he need that reality check before ruining his career? Let me know in the comments if you would have given him a second chance.
And that's a wrap for today's compilation. Which of these stories left you the most speechless? Was it the boyfriend who tried to replace his partner, or the family that actually had the audacity to ask for someone's master bedroom? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I love reading your takes on who is really in the wrong. If you enjoyed this long-form recap and want to support the channel, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a daily story. Thanks for watching Democracy Dossier, and I'll see you in the next one.